Good evening. I call to order the regular meeting of the mayor and the board of trustees of the village of Burr Ridge for Monday, December 14, 2020. I'll lead you in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Trustee Franzese,
Here.
Trustee Schiappa. Trustee Schiappa,
You're muted.
he's muted.
Here.
Okay.
Trustee Pavisa,
Here.
Trustee Snyder,
Here.
Trustee Matal,
Here.
Trustee Model,
Present in the boardroom.
Mayor Grasso.
Here. I call to order the public hearing of the 2020 tax levy. Oh, I do. Thank you very much, Mike. I hereby declare as the mayor of the village of Burr Ridge that I've determined that an in-person meeting is not practical nor prudent on account of the disaster declaration issued by Governor Pritzker because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you, Mike. And with that, I'll bang the gavel again. I call to order the public hearing of the 2020 tax levy.
Thank you, Mayor.
Evan?
So we open the public hearing tax levy for the 2020 edition of the property tax. I'd like to invite Amy Nelson to make the presentation. All the information necessary. Amy.
Okay, thank you. So tonight's, the purpose of the public hearing is to approve the village's 2020 tax levy. We do this every December, and the village is required under the Truth in Taxation Law to hold a public hearing if the tax levy request is greater than 5% over the 2019 tax levy, which is the prior year actual. Some municipalities and taxing districts still hold a public hearing, even though when levying less than that, over 5%. However, to be transparent with the taxpayers, this is a standard practice that municipalities go through every year. On the November 9th board meeting, we had proposed a tax levy to the board that was a total of $1,341,760. That amount was a 6.31% increase over the 2019 tax levy, or a $79,661 increase. The village, like all taxing districts, are required each year to levy a tax, which is a request for property tax revenues that will be received in the following year. We're required to do this by the last Tuesday of December. The village is a non-home rule entity, and so we are limited to the property tax extension limitation law, which limits the village to raise the tax no more than 5%, the lesser of 5%, or CPI, plus the value derived from any new growth or from annexation or new construction. This year's CPI amount that was determined by the Department of Labor Bureau of Statistics is 2.3%. The unknown factor, which the village traditionally estimates at 4%. This is typically overestimated growth because it's a one unknown factor that we won't know until the spring when the assessors come out with their actual values. So the rationale behind it is to not leave money on the table that municipalities, we don't know what that number will be. And so if you do levy less than that or underestimate your new growth, it can't be regained in future years. So that is the rationale behind the 4% of what the village has done in the prior years. For example, last year, the village estimated a 5.9% increase, but in actual, when the final levies came out and we got our final extensions, it was more at 3%. So once we have determined the total levy, we divide our tax levy into three categories, which is starts off with the largest portion of our levy, which goes to the police pension levy. This is a statutory minimum requirement that is calculated by our actuaries, an independent actuary, and it's calculated on April 30th of each year. The remaining dollars in our levy is then divided into the corporate levy and the police protection levy to fund our general fund expenditures. So in your packet, just scroll down to table 1 is a representation of what was presented at the November 9th estimated proposing what our tax levy was proposed. The $1,341,760 was an increase of $79,661, an increase of 6.31%. You can see there was a significant increase of about 20% in the police pension levy this year, which basically reduced the general fund revenues of approximately an impact of about a decrease of $71,000 for the year. Mayor Grasso had requested the staff provide an additional scenarios to the board to propose of what it would look like in a scenario if the village would propose a 4.5% increase over the previous year. So in table 2, with that extended dollar would be $1,318,886, which would be a $56,787,000 increase over last year's 2019 extended levy. And table 3 shows the impact of what a 4.99% increase would be over last year's levy, and that's a $62,985,000 change. You can see respectively on table 2, the general fund impact on revenues would be close to $95,000 reduction in general fund revenues, and table 3 shows about an approximately $88,000 reduction in revenues. So through this public notice, the village has established the statutory authority to request up to $1,341,760. And we are asking tonight for board direction to review this proposal, and so that the village can file the required disclosures by December 29th, the last Tuesday in December. With that, I'd happy to answer any questions.
Sure, thank you. For anybody in the public or on the phone, and this is a public hearing that wishes to be heard on the 2020 tax levy. If you're on the phone, please unmute yourself, identify yourself so you can be heard. This is a public hearing on the 2020 tax levy. Is there anyone?
At this time.
Okay, can I get a motion to close? Well, that's what I said. Anybody in the audience and anybody in the public? I said that. Okay. Sue, did you receive any written comments on the 2020 tax levy?
No.
Okay. Can I get a motion to close the public hearing on the 2020 tax levy?
So moved. Mr.
Second.
Trustee Yapa.
Second, trustee Snyder.
Okay, roll call, please.
Trustee Schiappa,
Yes.
trustee Snyder,
Yes.
trustee Matal,
Yes.
trustee Model, trustee Model,
Yeah,
Is your microphone on?
is your mic
The
on?
green light is on.
Okay, well then it's on. Can you
Mayor
hear?
Grasso.
Yes. Well, I don't think I get to vote.
You don't get to vote.
Yep.
Sorry.
It's I think you need trustee Francis.
Trustee Francis
Yes.
and trustee Pavisa.
Yes.
All right, 6-0, the motion passes. The public hearing is closed. All right, that takes us to the consent agenda. All items listed with an asterisk are considered routine by the village board and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a board member or citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda, discussed by the board, open for public comment, and voted upon during this meeting. Minutes, A, approval of regular board meeting of November 23, 2020. B, receive and file economic development meeting of December 2nd, 2020. C, receive and file plan commission of December 7, 2020. 6, ordinances. B, approval of ordinance authorizing the destruction of personal property owned by the village of Burr Ridge. 7, resolutions. Excuse me, approval of a resolution providing for the submission to the electors of the village of Burr Ridge at the consolidated election to be held on April 6, 2021, a public question as to whether to increase the annual compensation for the village president/mayor. 7C, approval of a resolution approving a legal services agreement for administrative hearing officer for the village of Burr Ridge.
Remove,
Remove 7C.
please.
Okay, that takes us to 8. 8C, approval of HOA surveillance camera software upgrade, the Flock Group Services Agreement. D, approval of Plan Commission.
Remove 8C, please.
Did I hear remove 8C? Okay,
8C, trustee Francis, please remove 8C.
okay, thank you. Okay, D, 8D, approval of Plan Commission recommendation to approve a special use for a medical office in the T1 Transitional District, Z12 2020 7512 County Line Road, Adla. Adla? He wants that removed?
Yes.
E, approval of 2021 village board meeting schedule. F, approval of vendor list dated December 14, 2020, amount of $551,447.50 for all funds, plus $445,029.99 for 2 payroll periods ending November 14, 2020 and November 28, 2020, for a grand total of $996,477.49, which includes special expenditures of $36,569.02 to Schroeder Asphalt Services for sidewalk and pathway maintenance, and $43,583.46 to RJN Group, Inc. for the MWRD program.
Remove, please.
Remove F.
Please.
Who asked?
I did, thank you.
Okay. Okay, can I get a motion to approve the following items that have not been removed from the consent agenda? Minutes 5A, B, and C, ordinances 6B, resolutions 7B, considerations E, 8E, and that's it.
So moved.
Second,
Roll call, please.
Trustee Snyder,
Yes.
trustee Mattel,
yes.
trustee Model,
Yes.
trustee Francis,
Yes.
trustee Chiappa,
Yes.
trustee Pavisa.
Yes.
6-0, the motion passes. Okay, that takes us to 6, ordinances A. Consideration of an ordinance levying taxes for all corporate purposes for the village of Burr Ridge, DuPage, and Cook Counties, Illinois, for the fiscal year commencing on May 1, 2020 and ending April 30, 2021.
Yes, thank you. This is simply the extension period of the earlier. This is where the board takes action in the form of an ordinance to levy property taxes for the year in arrears. That's for the reason for the 2020, 2021 dates, even though we're already in that budget year. We look forward to your direction. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. I did ask, having seen from the November 9th meeting that the projection was, even though it's amounts of monies that are in the tens of thousands of dollars of difference, it is in fact, in percentage purposes, 6.31%, which is traditionally 0.3 over what non-home rule villages and this village have traditionally levied. So I asked staff to present the board and the public with various scenarios that would include numbers at 4.5% and 4.9%. And it is my recommendation, but it certainly is the board's decision to levy an amount less than 5%, consistent with the non-home rule cap of 5%. Does anyone want to make a motion as to what number we want to levy at?
Question.
Yes, Al.
On levying this mark, normally we ask for more because we don't know what the actual numbers are going to come out with after Cook County gets done, or in DuPage County. Now, by going to the 6.3%, will this raise our village tax rate over 2%?
So the village, the CPI this year is 2.3%. So factored into that 6.3% is the county is allowing the extension to at least, it's the lesser of CPI or 5%. So we are, guaranteed, I guess, the 2.3%. And then it's anything additional on top of that, that is new growth and new construction. The last 3 years, I think we saw roughly an average of maybe 1.5% in new growth. So there really has not been, we haven't seen the 4%. The last time was in 2008, I think, when I look back at the historical records, when we saw new growth of, more than, I want to say we've been averaging about 3% over the last 10 years. So
Al, as I understand it, and Amy, correct me please if I misstate this, the amount of money that we've put in this proposal for 6.3% is a $1.3 million number.
Right.
Driven largely also by the police pension obligation, which of course we've always met. But my point was this, that we've never really gotten over 5% ever anyhow. And as I understand the numbers this year, the CPI is 2.3%. And if we had growth of even 1.5, let's just call 2% growth, we still wouldn't get a levy over 4.3 max, right? Am I explaining that correctly?
Yes, you did.
So since that is highly unlikely in and of itself that we'd even get 4.3, I asked staff to run numbers at 4.5 and 4.9 in order to stay under the 5% that we've traditionally done, so it doesn't appear to the public that we're trying to ask for 6.3 when realistically we all know that we're probably never going to see anything even above 4. And so to stay below the 5, it would, again, I ran numbers so that the board could suggest a number that's less than 6.3%. And what I would recommend more towards 4.5 or 4.9, which at the end of the day, we're going to be lucky even if we get 4 in order to meet our pension obligations and other things. So that's where we are today.
Well, that's what I normally thought, is that we go for a lot more because we don't know what the final number is going to be by Cook and DuPage County. So I would say if we're going to go, probably the best way to go would be the 4.9.
But this is Trustee Schiappa.
Yes, sir.
So what have our previous years of growth been? Let's say the last 3 years.
Of growth?
Amy, by any chance?
So I can answer that. So in 2019, last year in particular, we estimated or projected submitted to the counties 5.9%. We actually saw 3.3% total. In 2018, we saw 3.19%. 2017 was 3.1%. 2016 was 1.36%. So we have not seen, over 3%, in a
Okay, this is the total levy or growth?
total levy. So last year, I know the CPI was 1.9%, so just barely over, another 1.5% for new build.
So it was a 2% growth last year.
Right.
Okay. And that's the other thing is, okay, so the growth and then the CPI. Yeah, I mean, I agree with the logic that maybe the 6.3 going out that high when we know our CPI is at 2.3 and our growth is probably be projected at 2%. That's 4.3. So I have to agree with Al that maybe we do go out at 4.99 and see what comes back.
You have an option at 4.5 too, which is also going to be above what we're ever going to get. But in any
Right.
event, I think we ran the numbers to show the public. I thought I took a quick note here. Let me see where I am.
This is Trustee Mittal. I have a quick question. So let's assume we do ask for the 6.31. What is the downside? Because we're really going to get what they're going to give us, but I mean, is there any downside to asking for more?
Well, the downside to me as the mayor is that you're asking for a percentage that, number one, is very, very, well, it's never going to be granted, never has been granted. But more to my point is that it's over 5%. And as a non-home rule community, the residents have been understandably accustomed to seeing a request that's no higher than 5%. And then even when we've asked for 5%, as Amy just outlined, we've gotten substantially below that anyhow. We had in the 3%, rarely did it even get to 4%. And so to me, the downside is asking for something above 5%, knowing that we're not going to get it anyhow. And we're not being consistent with what the common belief is for a non-home rule community max. And even at 4.5 or 4.99, we're still likely only going to get something in the 3s.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So right now there's some interest in 4.99. I would suggest that even at 4.50, never even going to get that. And just so you have some idea of what the numbers are, at 6.3%, you're asking for basically $80,000 increase in the tax levy. At 4.99%, you're asking for basically $63,000. And at 4.5%, it's basically $57,000. Not huge differences in numbers. But again, we're likely only to get something in the 3s, which is going to be under $50,000. So I would urge somebody to make a motion for somewhere in the area of 4.5. But if somebody really wants 4.99, at least for me, that's below 5. I wouldn't have an objection to that, since we're still, so the public understands, we're going to get probably something well under that in the 3s.
Okay.
Mayor.
Yeah, is there anybody else, any of the trustees that are in Zoom have any questions?
This
Yes,
is Trustee Franzese. I just have a comment.
Yes, go ahead.
So just so it's clear to the residents, when there's anticipated growth in the village, meaning property being developed, tax rate classifications being changed, property improved, those developed properties now come on the books, and those are assessed at a higher rate. And so that's what we talk about with growth. Those properties that now are paying a bigger tax bill that can then contribute to the village and to the other taxing bodies. So that money, that growth, that anticipated growth, there's no change, no net change to the residents. Correct?
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct. If you don't experience any new growth or increase, then it's just at the rate that you've been assessed by the by the counties, and that typically is less than 2% on any of our residents' tax bill.
So the residents with the growth, they don't see any increase in their taxes. It's those properties that have been improved that have been reassessed. Thank you.
All right, trustee Model, you had a question?
Yes, a question and well, kind of a comment here. I think, thank you for this presentation with these options, Mayor Grosso. I think it's important to see that, and also for clarifying that. I think that's why the voters understood and voted down home rule. This is an important reminder. They don't want to see tax hikes in the 6, 10, or even higher level. And being a non-home rule community is very important to keep our taxes low. I think governments always seek to grow and spend more and more and more. And it's important that there are restraints in place to keep that from happening. You can hear right here, just in this hearing, there's a lot of urge to go for the biggest number possible. We want to keep our taxes low. That's how we keep them low. We don't go home rule. We stay as we are. But I personally don't understand why we always have to grow. You know, the 2.3% CPI to me would be something I could support. I know the logic of what especially the government wants to say, why we have to get more money all the time. But you know, we never really look at saving any money. You know, we never look at how can we do policing smarter for less dollars? How can we do more with less in the budget? So I'm a guy who always wonders if we could just really go with a cost of living only, or maybe even a 0% levy. And I know people in government, their smoke blows out their ears, their hair catches on fire when they say that, but I don't know why we can't do that. We can't look for savings and stuff. And I know many people will disagree with me, but that's a kind of a personal stance I take, that we could do better as a government. We could save money. We don't have to raise taxes. And of course, how important it is that we're not home rule, because we have these protections for the residents in place. So thank you.
Appreciate your comment. I think people disagree with, I'll disagree with what you're saying. I think this village very much strives to save money and find the best way to govern, and always has, which shows in our considerable surplus that we have and reserves that we have. The problem that we're facing year in and year out, that no matter how well you run a government locally, there have been unfunded mandates coming from Springfield for generations, not the least of which is the public pension obligation. When you looked at what happened this year, there was a significant jump in our obligation, and indeed probably obligations around the state of municipalities having to fund the police pension. What was the delta between last year and this year alone, Amy, as to what our obligation is?
So there was about 3 driving factors, but the 2 main one was our fiscal year is on an April 30th year end. And so one of the biggest factors that impacted municipalities on an April 30th year end was the market. So part of when they go through the actuarial, the market returns at April 30th were terrible. Now, municipalities that were on a calendar year, this coming calendar year, they may see better, you know, their funding, you know, obligations might actually look better than people with an April 30th. There also was significant changes to the tier 2 benefit changes for pensioners. So that was out of control of, you know, anything the village could do, but the state increased the tier 2 benefits for pensioners. So that ultimately increases the pension obligation to the village.
So what is the actual delta, the actual numbers? Evan?
Yeah.
Somebody?
It went up from $758,000 to $910,000 in a single year.
Right, 20%.
So I just want to note here I'll just use table 1. It doesn't matter.
Right.
So as you'll note here, the general fund, if you went with a 6, well, let's go with the 499 goes from 1,262,099 to 1,325,084. So it would be a net increase of $60,000, but because more than that is going to the police pension, we're actually going to see a general fund decrease of $88,000 with the 499. That really doesn't change any dollar amount up to 61. There is in fund impact of over $50,000 outside of the police pension. Majority of increase in the property taxes going to funds that are basically outside of our control.
Right. So you've got the police protection and police pension funds are what they are, and they have to be met. And even if we were to get, even at 4.5, we're going to have an $88,000 projected general fund impact, and we're not going to get that amount. So we're going to have even more than that likely because we're not even going to get
Right.
those numbers. So the point is that I think everybody tries to save money and budget the best we can, but as a non-home rule community, we have only a very limited ability to get revenue, and yet unfunded mandates occur regardless of whether you're home rule or non-home rule. In this case, we're going to have a pension obligation alone this year of $910,000, which was only $758,000 last year. And next year it's projected to even to blow past $1 million. So it's an academic discussion more than anything else because we're not even probably going to get 3% at all. But it is what it is. It's maybe not the best explanation, but we're still going to be behind and probably have to go into reserves just to make this police protection and police pension match. So a long-winded way of saying we need a motion. Let's see if we can move on and see if we can get a motion either at 4.5 or 4.99 for a tax levy, understanding that we're not even going to get probably in the threes.
Just one question more, as was made, we'll probably only get 2.6 or 3%, but in all the years we've been doing it, we always ask for almost 5% because if we go, say, 3% and we had some development that the county was late getting on and we asked for 3% and it really came on 3.5%, that 0.5% goes with the county. We don't get it. That's why we always ask for more.
Yes, that's unfortunately, we have to try to predict that, but I think it's safe this year, Al, that even at 4.5 or 4.99, we're not even going to get anywhere.
I agree with that.
Mayor, I too have one more comment then.
Okay, one more.
Thank you. I appreciate what you said about the unfunded mandates, and I feel that way too. Springfield really does that. But on the other hand, we can't completely blame them for our police pension. And that's why when I talk about when we're hiring officers, when we're talking about policing, is there a smarter way to do it? Because really, yes, Springfield mandated that we have to pay their pension and sets rules and guidelines related to it, but it was our hiring decisions and the salaries that we chose to pay the officers that ultimately resulted in this. I don't know if it's a good idea or not, but it could be something to discuss. I know other towns do more part-time policing, more officers, but part-time to help bring this down in the future. And it's a long time. The decisions we make now will be affecting this obligation for many, many years into the future. So that's why I'm always pushing to talk about smarter ways to do this, to try to ultimately in the long run start dealing with this. Because if we keep doing more of the same, we are going to constantly see more of the same. And yeah, Springfield does put some pretty tough rules in place for how you have to fund these things. So I always am encouraging a broader discussion about the issues and how we got to this place. So that's all I'm bringing up again here that I think.
And I agree. I think we should.
Who's the person who was talking there making that point?
That is Trustee Model.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think we should always discuss that. I think we do every year. This isn't the time to do it, but we are also like every other community. There are union contracts. There are unions to deal with. There is reality of what we might want to pay, but what has to be paid in order to get officers. Public safety is the #1 job of government, in my opinion. We have always had a very effective department and always highest rated. And we've also had a AAA bond rated village. So we should always be looking at if there's ways to improve. I agree with that. Tonight's not that time. Tonight is the time to pass the budget levy. So can I get a motion at either 4.5 or 4.99 for the 2020 tax levy?
Mr. Mayor, this is Trustee Schiappa, and like I've heard already, we've on the past we've done 5%. So I do believe tonight we can make a change. So I will motion for a tax levy of 4.5%. There's something different. Change is good for all of us, and I appreciate you, Mr. Mayor, for taking the time to spell these tables out so that we can see those additional impacts of the tax levy. So this is a good time to make a change. So I motion for the 4.5% tax levy.
Second.
Do we have a second from Trustee Matal? Is there any further discussion by the members of the board?
It should be noted that the tax levy ordinance that's in the packet then would be amended in various sections, including sections 1 and section 2. The dollar amount would be a total levy in the amount of $1,318,886. That is the 4.5% amount. And it's my understanding that there's an ordinance with the line changes made.
It's been drafted. It's not here in front of me, but it has been drafted and we can check
Okay,
it.
so that would be the ordinance that the board would be approving is an amended ordinance with the amount changed to $1,318,886.
Okay. Any public comment? Anybody in the audience? Anybody who is on the phone? Anybody want to comment on this motion? Roll call, please.
Trustee Skiappa,
Yes.
trustee Matal,
Yes.
trustee Model,
Oh,
trustee Francis,
Yes.
trustee Pavisa,
Yes.
trustee Snyder.
Yes.
5-0, the motion passes.
5-1.
Did I say 0? I'm sorry. 5-1, the motion passes. Thank you for the correction. All right, that takes us to resolutions. A, consideration of a resolution censuring trustee Zachary Model for the 6th time. That resolution is in your packet at 7A. Does anybody want to make a motion?
So moved.
Trustee Snyder, do we have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Could you please read the resolution?
A resolution censuring trustee Zachary Model for the 6th time. Whereas pursuant to section 2.10 of Article 3 of Chapter 2 of the Burr Ridge Village Code, village trustees form the legislative department of the village's government and shall perform the duties and shall exercise the powers as may be delegated to them by statute. And whereas Chapter 2, Article 18 of the Burr Ridge Municipal Code establishes a code of conduct wherein, quote, representatives of the village of Burr Ridge shall at all times demonstrate a high standard of ethics and conduct in their public service, unquote. And whereas Section 2.99D of the Burr Ridge Municipal Code states that elected officials and other representatives of the village shall, quote, refrain from publicly disparaging or demeaning the residents of the village, unquote. And whereas Section 2.99H of the Village of Burr Ridge Municipal Code states that elected officials and other representatives of the village shall, quote, not reveal to any third-party resident village businesses, business owners, or operator staff, or petitioner the subject or content of discussions, information, comments, or decisions made in closed or executive session, close quote. And whereas both prior to and at the November 9, 2020 Village Board meeting, trustee Model violated said section 2.99H of the Code of Conduct when he willfully and publicly disclosed information that had been disclosed to the Board of Trustees in executive session at a previous meeting. And as at the November 9, 2020 Village Board meeting, trustee Model violated said section 2.99D of the Code of Conduct when he publicly asserted that a resident of the village who was remotely attending said board meeting may not be fully clothed and may be performing a sexual act in public view. And whereas section 299 of the Burr Ridge Municipal Code states that elected officials and other representatives of the village shall, quote, commit to conduct themselves in accordance with the highest standards of ethical, moral, and legal behavior. And whereas at the November 9, 2020 Village Board meeting, trustee Zachary Model violated the Code of Conduct for elected officials as per Chapter 2, Article 18 of the Burr Ridge Municipal Code, with said violations described herein. And whereas This is the sixth resolution of censure of trustee Model since November 2019 for similar uncivil and demeaning conduct. See also R 3519, R 1120, R 1220, R 2820, and R 3820. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the mayor and board of trustees of the village of Burr Ridge, Cook and DuPage Counties, Illinois as follows. Section 1, the statements set forth in the preamble hereto are adopted as the findings of the village board as if fully set forth herein. Section 2, the village board finds that the aforementioned conduct of Zachary Model, trustee Zachary Model, was unbecoming a trustee, and his action to reveal confidential information in a public setting did violate the village code of conduct. Section 3, the village board further finds that the aforementioned conduct of trustee Zachary Model was unwarranted and was disparaging and demeaning to the reputation and character of a village resident. Section 4, due to his repeated violations of the aforementioned standards of ethics and conduct, the village board hereby finds that trustee Model has irrevocably compromised his ability to fulfill his responsibility as an elected representative of the residents of the village of Burr Ridge, and therefore respectfully request once again that trustee Zachary Model immediately resign from his position as trustee of the village of Burr Ridge. Section 5, this resolution shall be in full force and effect upon its adoption and approval. Any further discussion?
Yes, Mayor.
Just a minute. Any comment from the public? Anybody call in? Anybody wants to unmute and make a comment? Okay, yes, trustee Model.
Thank you for reading that, Mayor. I appreciate it because it's long and there's a lot of information. I want to make sure. And Evan, thank you for keeping it in front of me. I might need to refer to it a few times if you don't mind, just keep it on the screen. But anyway, related to this section of my comments, you know, those comments, those should have stayed in my head. And I'm sorry that those were audible. In fact, I didn't even realize I muttered them. You know, the mic is right here. And it was kind of dry humor joke in my head. I was referring to what had happened in the New York Post with the reporter. And so I really didn't mean it related to any resident, and for any offense I've created, I apologize for that. As for, you know, the censures in general here and some of the other things that have been brought up in here, you know, Mayor, you've certainly made comments to residents that might be considered misogynistic and inappropriate, could be censored. You certainly emailed me, calling me names and all kinds of, you know, antagonizing things that could be censored that seem inappropriate. But these censures are a distraction. I'm not calling for your censure. I really wish you all would stop doing this. It's a, you know, this is the definition of insanity. I'm not going to resign. You can keep censoring me at every meeting if you'd like to, and nothing is going to change. So I hope, other than I will not make comments like I said under my breath again. I will never do that. I apologize. But in general, I don't really agree with these. These are distractions from the real issues. You know, I've tried this over the past few weeks, Mayor. I've emailed you and the interim administrator Walter and the clerk, many things that are of real public interest that I've tried to unsuccessfully put on the agenda. Things like the apparent violation of the Liquor Control Act by licensees in the village. Discussion, consideration of whether your son, Michael Grasso's valet business.
Point of order, we're off topic.
Point of order. Okay, that's it. Now let's have a roll call, please.
Oh, but wait, sir, please, I was speaking. What was the point of order? Why was I interrupted?
If you're off the point.
No, I'm
You're off
speaking.
the point.
I'm speaking of the
You
many
want to
real
bring
things.
this up at another time. Bring this up at another time.
Okay, sir, thank you.
So you can bring it up at another
Thank
time.
you.
Let's roll call, please.
Mhm.
Trustee Snyder,
Yes.
trustee Matal,
Yes.
trustee Model,
No,
trustee Francis,
Yes.
trustee Chiappa, trustee Chiappa,
Yes.
trustee Pavisa,
Yes.
I have one.
5-1,
thank you for including.
motion
that.
passes. All right, now that takes us to item resolution C, approval of a resolution approving a legal services agreement for administrative hearing officer for the village of Burr Ridge. Trustee Model.
Yeah, I'm opposed to hiring this individual for reasons I've previously stated. I think it creates a bad optic, conflict of interest with you and your other business, Gary. But moreover, I think that this whole local court is really not a good thing for the village. I think that residents are giving up a lot of their rights and freedoms. They don't realize that you have to wait until you're in this court. You don't have to have a preponderance of evidence to be found guilty for your code violation or whatever else. I think it also creates an opportunity for you to reward, Mayor, a lot of your donors and people who have ordinance violations for after hours liquor things and things like that. That would also come before this court. And I think it creates an opportunity for impropriety. I don't think we're going to save the money that we've talked about in the police officer's time. I think there's better ways to save money than taking away our residents' rights and abilities. And again, it just creates this whole optic of connected and corruption and rewarding everybody, cronies and buddies. So I'm really, really opposed to it in general. Thank you.
As usual, your comments are unsubstantiated and a vivid imagination.
Question,
Okay, so can we get a motion, first of all, to approve a resolution approving a legal services agreement for the administrative hearing officer for the village of Burr Ridge?
So moved.
Franzi, so moved.
Second for trustee Schiappa.
Okay, any further comments?
yes, I have a comment.
Go ahead.
The comment I have, if my understanding is right, the purpose of doing this, the items that will be discussed by the judge at our local court is something that would normally be handled at another court. We're not making these things up so we can attach them to our residents. These are things that our residents would have to go to another court for. Is that right?
Yes, this would normally have to go to traffic court. And to recap why this was brought up from the beginning, both by the chief, by administration, and is being discussed in many other villages other than this one, is that in particular to DuPage County. And of course, we straddle two counties, but when we have to prosecute traffic ordinance violations and traffic tickets, we have to go to traffic court. Many of you may recall that traffic court was traditionally for many years in Downers Grove, north of Ogden Avenue on Saratoga up at the American Legion facility. For several years, including while I was on the DuPage County Board, the chief judges each year have been objecting to continuing that court on contentions, valid contentions, that there are security problems for the judges, for the prosecutors, for the officers, for the public. And so they have, the county board, DuPage County Board, voted to close that court. But that would now require our officers and other officers such as in Hinsdale, Willowbrook, and people in this end of the county to now travel to Wheaton. We lose as it is. We probably don't make any money overall on our ordinances and traffic tickets if you do the analysis because of the requirement to pay overtime and the requirement that the law has that an officer be present even when things get continued. And so it's a terribly inefficient system. And as a result, more and more of these adjudication courts have been implemented in many villages. To some extent, Burr Ridge is a little late to the game because we've just tried to resist doing this. But when you do the analysis, as you point out, Al, it's still going to a court. This is the hearing officer that has no connection to the village at all. She is a judge. The other people that applied for this, though very competent, she was the only one who was a judge. She was, I've come to know more about her resume. I don't know her, but I've now discovered that she worked her way through college. She worked at a law firm and went to law school part-time during holidays, morning sessions. This goes back 30 years when you could do that at some of the local law schools. She went to John Marshall. She graduated. She then worked, I believe, at least 20 years in private practice before getting elected to the Cook County Judiciary, not appointed, and then was elected 2 more times after that before retiring after a 20-year career. She does this hearing officer services not only now at the village of Burr Ridge, but there's at least, I think, Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, at least 5 other communities where she is the hearing officer. So she's a well-vetted, well-qualified person to disparage her, law firm, to disparage this program, as Trustee Model is always doing at anything the Village of Burridge does, is just uncalled for, but he's entitled to his opinion. This is a very well-qualified program, a very well-qualified judge, and we should approve.
Well, that's why I wanted to bring it up, because the way Trustee Model made it sound like this was something detrimental instead of something that's positive.
That's
Can I
something.
make one more
that-
comment then too?
No, you had your
No, the
comment.
other trustee.
That-
made
that you
two.
had
Can
your
we- can we
comment.
be fair,
Is
sir?
there any other trustee that wishes to
Sure,
make a
sir.
comment?
Trustee Snyder?
Yes, Trustee Snyder.
It's terrible that trustee Model continually feels this way, that some way the village goes against him or anything. But if he came to some of the meetings instead of being not there, or not able to call in, or not able to show up, he would know what's going on. So when he constantly goes against the village of good policies that we're trying to put there, if he was there, he'd be approving with us. He'd be going along with the program like he used to. But since he can't make any of the meetings, it's a little difficult for him. So I feel bad for him, Mayor. Thank you.
Ryder, you wouldn't let me.
Okay,
motion
that's
for you to
it.
join the
That's
meeting.
all.
Mayor,
That's
I'm
it.
gonna make
Any
one more
other,
comment,
any
sir.
other comment,
Mayor, I'd like
any
to
other
make
comment by any other
one more comment,
trustee?
sir. Yes, I have one more comment. Thank you.
No,
Trustee.
no,
Trustee
I don't-
Francis, I'd like to make a comment.
No,
You
no,
said any trustee-
you've already had your say.
I just
You
want to
already
ask
had
a
your say.
question, please.
So
How were
let's-
these people
let's-
selected? Because they were all invited.
Trustee Schiappa, I'd
Okay,
like to make a comment.
Yes.
So I think that
Papa, go ahead.
Could I please
You comment.
Okay, I'll
this
wait.
woman is going to be a great addition to the Village of Burridge. Obviously, she knows what it means to put in hard work and work part-time and go to school, put herself through school and take some risks. These are all things that Trustee Model doesn't know anything about. So I'm happy to see that a woman is representing the Village of Burridge in a program like this. And so I would motion for this resolution.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
This is Trustee Francis. I'd like to make a comment, please.
Okay, Trustee Francis, go ahead.
So, first of all, there was some comments made earlier about time savings for our village officers having to go to court either in Downers Grove or eventually in Wheaton. It's also time savings for the residents of the village when they have a ticket or a zoning violation, a code violation, whatever. They will have to go to Wheaton as well. So it is a time savings for them as well. Judge Phelan is a well-respected judge. Her integrity is beyond measure, dedicated to serving the community at other adjudication facilities, and it will be an independent contractor, I'm told, for to the village. So the law firm, it's my understanding, this law firm that she is employed with part-time will have no connection with the village. That's correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So we look forward to having her. She'll make an outstanding adjudication officer, be fair and impartial to all of the residents, all of the individuals that come before her. I'm confident she'll do an exceptional job for our community. Thank you.
Is there any public comment? Is anybody on the phone who wishes to comment on this motion? Anyone in the audience?
Mayor, I'd like to make a comment.
You've had your comment.
No,
Roll call,
no,
please.
No, sir.
Roll
Please
call,
be fair,
please.
please. Please be fair.
We're
sir.
more than fair to you.
No,
Roll
sir,
call,
please.
please.
I have a
Trustee
comment.
Fran,
Oh, there's someone.
I have a comment. Public.
Oh, sure.
Yes.
Please identify yourself.
Christine Formansky.
Hello.
Hi. I just want to know what the percentage of people that actually just pay their ticket and don't go to court. And then we're going to have this person collecting $2.25 per hour. I mean, really, where's the savings? The police officers work 12-hour shifts. So they have the time to go. And plus, I don't understand why, if I want to go to the main courthouse because I want to be with a judge or have a jury or something, depending on what it is, I think I feel like that's my right. I don't want to have to go and now sit before someone who's hired by the village. I mean, where is, that's freedom to do going to the courthouse. Not just to be going into the village hall and then being, oh, here, pay this. I don't like this idea.
No one requires anyone to pay the fines, just like in any other traffic court. People can pay or contest it.
I asked the percentage. What is the percentage that's going to be saved?
I don't know that we know. Let me see. How many, do we have a percentage of actually how many people tend over the years to pay without going to a hearing?
I don't have that data, but I'd be happy to get it for you.
Okay. But so if someone wants, if the traffic court was instituted and someone wanted to pay their fine, they would go all the way up to Wheaton, pay their fine. If they wanted, if it was an ordinance proceeding or a minor traffic proceeding where we could have it in adjudication court and they wanted to pay their fine, they could come to adjudication court and pay their fine, correct?
Pay it ahead of time at a
Pay it
reduced
ahead of
rate.
time. Okay.
If they're not happy with the administrative hearing judge's decision, they have the option to go into circuit court and have it.
Have their jury trial, right? If they wanted to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Administrative review.
It's just an administrative review. So, Ms. Formansky, did you hear the answer to that? So if you or anyone else went to the hearing officer, you didn't like the outcome and you disagreed, you could still go up to the circuit court, which would be in Wheaton, and you could still have your day in court either with a judge or with a jury. So that hasn't changed.
So what is the savings that it's going to be that if, okay, I don't like the outcome, I'm still going to Wheaton. And a lot of the village people that live in the community usually probably just pay it. They don't go to court because they have the money. Sometimes they don't contest that.
Assumptions that have no support, but of course you're entitled to your opinion.
Yes, I am.
Effective January, I believe we have to go to Wheaton for all of our traffic court. So Downers Grove is shut down effective January. We have to have officers go out there, takes them away from their duty here.
They work 12-hour shifts.
Exactly, they do.
Yeah, and how many do you have per shift?
No, we have 5 per shift.
Okay, that's a lot for this village.
Okay, so Mr. Mansky, we get that you're opposed to it, no matter what the chief says. Now, is there anyone else that has any comment?
It's not opposed, it's just giving an opinion and asking some questions. I mean, I didn't think it was a big deal, to have some facts on what it really is going to come down to.
So it comes down to if you were the person who got the violation and you were going to adjudication court.
I know it quite well.
You could come here and not have to travel all the way to Wheaton.
Yeah, I'd rather travel to Wheaton.
If you're unhappy with the outcome in Wheaton, you could still have your trial in front of a judge or a jury. You could do the same thing here in adjudication court. You have not given up or lost any rights at all. There is greater convenience to you, and as Trustee Francis pointed out, greater convenience to the other residents who may have to be a witness or are involved some way, for example, in a zoning dispute. And so there's more convenience. We also not only save the money and time of our officers having to travel to Wheaton, but we also have them here. So we get actually a dual benefit. They don't travel to Wheaton and therefore are out of our jurisdiction.
Yes, I'm well aware of a court call, a court key.
Evidence, you
I'm
remove the
glad that
preponderance of
you're-
evidence, so they don't need to face their accuser. That's
Trustee
the problem.
Model, please be quiet. Now,
That's a big change.
There's no big change in the standards
Yes, you
at
don't
all.
get to see your accuser.
At
The
all.
officer's not going to be.
The officer will be there. So,
Well, what happened with that shooting at the Crown Plaza on Saturday?
well, that's not going to be in ordinance court, believe me.
No, you're saying about the police. I mean, yeah, they're what's it called, stressed too. But I mean, the thing is, court keys are what, once every month or so, or every week? They usually have a certain person.
No, they go based on whoever wrote the violation or the ticket. They have to be the, if you will, the accusing officer.
So now we won't face
Any
the
other
accuser.
questions?
Isn't that correct? We changed that. Can you just clarify that, Mayor?
I have a public question. Hello,
One second. I'm sorry, is this someone else?
I'm trying to ask a question, Ellen Raymond.
Okay, yes, Ellen.
I had trouble calling in. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to be speaking on Zoom. I hope it's okay.
It's okay.
Thank you. I have two questions. One is, I am a certified hearing officer with experience and a resident. So I never saw the job posting, and I'm just wondering for future things, how are these jobs posted? I know sometimes the e-briefs name something, but I didn't see it in there. I didn't see it on the website. What was the procedure? Not that I feel more qualified than a court judge, but I would have liked to put my resume in.
What is the procedure for notice? Deputy Chief Loftus will answer your question, Ellen.
Thank you.
You're welcome. When I was given this assignment, I reached out to surrounding towns to see who was already hearing officers. I got 4 recommendations from different towns, 3 recommendations, and sent emails to these folks to see how much it costs, what was involved, how long they've been hearing officers, what their experience was. We took those 4, compared them, and made a selection based on that.
Okay, so we didn't
Why did you
generally.
email Denise
Just a
weeks
minute,
after you received the
trustee
other emails?
Model,
I want to
trustee
ask the
Model.
deputy chief a
Yeah,
question,
well,
sir.
wait to be recognized, please.
You'll
And
recognize
then-
me, great,
Right.
thank you. Perfect.
So do you not, is it not standard procedure to post something like this?
We've never done it before, so I didn't.
Okay. And what's your question, trustee?
Well, I noticed in the FOIA responses that you emailed, I agree with your statement that you emailed those other towns and asked for recommendations, and then you wrote to them and got their information on their rates. But then almost 2 weeks later, according to the dates in the FOIA, you emailed Denise and asked her to invite a bid. It was after you'd already received the responses with the rates and everything from the 3 other opportunities. So to me, that seems disingenuous that you didn't ask them all at one time, that it wasn't a closed process. I mean,
Sure.
she could have been fed special information to make sure she had an inside track. And I don't know why that several weeks to do that.
Because we had a board meeting where we presented the informationally about the process.
First 3 candidates?
Talked about the qualifications
Okay.
and mentioned how there had been a judge that was interested, but it was a resident and didn't think the board would be interested in the resident because of things that you brought up earlier about conflict of interest.
Yeah,
But
that
a
is.
judge with 20 years experience certainly should be given an
Well,
opportunity.
if she's a resident, even more, there's a conflict of interest because she's a resident in her own town. She shouldn't be a judge in her own town, but I agree. So I don't understand why you.
So after that board meeting, when the board suggested that was an appropriate person to ask, that's when the email was sent.
I didn't know the board suggested, because from the emails, it looked like she had contacted you years ago and suggested this whole court, and then you went back to her later on, maybe after.
No, that's
Because that's not what
a
the email.
misconception that she
Okay.
suggested it. The chief has put that in his goals for years prior to even meeting Judge Filan. I believe her question when she attended the Citizens Police Academy is, why aren't you guys doing this? And the chief was very familiar with it because it is in his goals and objectives for years prior. So what she didn't suggest it.
Okay, the quote was attributed to you from years past through her, that she suggested it to you and such. That's what I saw. I saw the quote was attributed to you, sir, that she suggested to you years ago to create the
Yeah.
court, and then she was invited in. So
Yeah,
that's correct.
and that was bad information on my part.
Okay, because that wasn't what the email documents showed either. So I just want to get that on the record, that the email documents showed a different situation, and the public is certainly welcome to FOIA those or contact me and I'll share them. But it was troubling to me that it was weeks after you received the, so to speak, bid of everyone else, right? How much they would charge and their rates and their times, that then she got a special invite and maybe got some other information here, probably to the top. But anyway, thank you for clarifying that. Hopefully in the future, we can have a more transparent process so that every resident, like Ms. Raymond or anybody else that's qualified, could participate.
And is there no statutory or local ordinance regarding hiring of staff for the village or independent contractors? Is there no previous procedures or something set forth?
Legally, not the council's aware of.
And my other question, I thought you answered, was it Christine that was asking a question? did you say that when we get a local ordinance violation, we would have a choice of appearing in Wheaton or Burr Ridge?
No, I did not say that. I think
Okay,
if you have a local ordinance violation that is in the adjudication program, as I understand it, and you appear in adjudication court and the hearing officer makes a finding and you object to it, you can appeal it, so to speak, to the circuit court of DuPage County and go in front of a judge and in an appropriate circumstance, request a jury. So you do have the same options, no less than you would had you gone to traffic court in Wheaton.
It would be an administrative review proceeding.
The
The
ordinance.
circuit court would review the proceeding at the local level. So that's.
oh, so you probably can't introduce evidence then. It's a review whether the decision was arbitrary and capricious?
You can make that legal argument, yes, but the court looks at the record that was established. The village is required to file the record with the circuit court, and the judge will then determine whether the ruling was against the manifest weight of the evidence.
So it's a different procedure than if you were to start in Wheaton. It's a review, like you said, an administrative review.
It's a greater review, counsel, yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, I think, is there anyone else that's called in?
Not to my knowledge. No.
All right, roll call, please.
Trustee Francis,
Yes.
trustee Chiappa,
Yes.
trustee Pavesa,
Yes.
trustee Snyder,
Yes.
trustee Matal,
Yes.
trustee Model,
No.
5-1, the motion passes. That takes us to 8 considerations. A, consideration of Plan Commission recommendation to approve a special use as per section 8B of the zoning ordinance for a restaurant with live entertainment and sales of alcoholic beverages. Special use to permit an outdoor dining area at a restaurant and a variation from section 11C13 of the zoning ordinance to permit a restaurant without the required number of parking spaces at the subject property, all in the B1 Business District, Z15-2020, 212 Burr Ridge Parkway, Halloran.
I'm going to invite Planner Doug Pollock to present remotely. Thank you.
Doug, welcome remotely.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks, Evan and Mayor and trustees.
Order, is Doug the planner right now?
The Plan Commission held a public hearing for this request at their November 16th meeting, and then that was continued to the December 7th meeting. The Plan Commission quickly came to the conclusion that the land use was appropriate, that special use met the findings of fact for the granting of a special use, determining that the a restaurant with live entertainment and outdoor dining is consistent with County Line Square and with downtown Burr Ridge. The only concern that the Plan Commission had, the primary concern, I should say, was parking. As the trustees know and the Plan Commission has dealt with in the past, County Line Square is underparked currently. The landlord did address that partially or in large measure in 2016 when they added 36 parking spaces to the property, reconfigured some spaces and were able to find 36 more. Yet they were still, the shopping center still short of parking. And thus any use that replaces another business and the new use has a greater parking demand than the old business, by definition is required to seek a parking variation if they want to open that business. In this case, the tenant space was occupied by Fred Astaire Dance Studio. which required 14 parking spaces. The proposed business requires 49 parking spaces, so an increase in parking of 35 spaces. At the initial hearing, the Plan Commission took in the information, wanted to get more information from the petitioner, particularly and primarily a parking management plan, a written plan that would describe how they would address the parking. At the December 7th meeting, that parking management plan was presented. The essential aspects of that plan is that employees are required to park behind the building or west of the main entryway. And they must provide, the business must provide valet parking every evening that it is open. And the valet cars must be parked in the west half of the western parking lot of the shopping center. The Plan Commission, based in large part on information provided by staff about the hours of operation of different uses in the shopping center, the Plan Commission was able to determine that in the evenings there's plenty of parking available west of the main entry drive. So it's not really, as a practical matter, it's not a parking shortage, it's a parking management issue. Plenty of parking west in the evenings, gets crowded east where all the restaurants are. With the commitment from the business to provide valet parking and to park those cars on the western section of the property, the Plan Commission felt that parking would be properly managed and therefore unanimously recommended approval of the parking variation as well as the special uses that were requested. Be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, first, any members of the Board of Trustees have any questions of Mr. Pollock? Okay, are there any members in the audience or calling in or listening in that have any questions of Mr. Pollock on this motion?
This is Trustee Skiap, but my mic was off. I did have one question for Doug.
Sure.
Doug, what are the total spaces available at County Line Square?
There are Kurt, there's so many numbers here. I want to just make sure I'm giving you the right number.
Guys, I saw the same thing, and I just wanted.
I believe the number is 468 parking spaces.
And that includes the additional 36 that they had created in 2016.
Correct.
And that parking lot is considered a shared parking lot, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Those are all my questions.
Okay.
Trustee Franzese, I have a question for Doug.
Sure.
So of those 436 parking spaces, that excludes Chase Bank parking, correct?
That is correct.
Even though some restaurant patrons may park there during the off hours, I'm sure Chase doesn't mind. But so there's a little bonus there, a little bonus parking that's not counted in your 436. And of those 436 spaces, how many are handicapped spaces?
I don't know. It's the actual number is 464.
Oh, 464. I apologize. 464.
I don't have the number of handicap accessible spaces.
Okay. Would it? My friends that use those spaces tell me that County Line Square is underparked with respect to handicap parking. Maybe at some time in the future, staff could take a look at that and ensure the residents that there's sufficient handicap parking at County Line Square.
Absolutely. There is a standard provided by the zoning ordinance in that regard.
Good. Let's check and make sure it has been modified, and also that we all know that the no parking signs along the fire lane have been taken out again. So someday those will get put back. So thank you.
Okay, any other trustees have any other questions? I believe we have no public comment. Anybody call in? And anybody here in the audience have any questions on this? Okay, can I get a motion? Do I have a motion? I've even forgotten.
Motion
We
to
need a
direct
motion.
staff
Okay,
to
thank
prepare an
you.
ordinance.
We have a motion can I get a motion to approve
Direct staff
item
to prepare an ordinance.
and direct staff to prepare an ordinance consistent with item 8A under considerations?
So moved.
Second.
That's Snyder and Mattal. Okay, roll call, please.
Discussion on the motion, please.
Okay, yes, go ahead.
Trustee Francis. So I fully support this special use. I had concerns about the parking, just like the Plan Commission, but I think with a well-managed parking plan that includes valet and assigned areas where the valets can put the cars, that they'll overcome the challenges of parking in County Line Square. I'm confident that this business owner can do that. Also, I had concerns about some of the noise complaints from last summer, the karaoke noise complaints, and I noticed that this petitioner is proposing those windows that open up fully, like Hampton Social. So if there's live music playing from inside or karaoke from inside, that noise will be transmitted outside. And we certainly don't want to have any more noise complaints from our neighbors, from our residences to the south and to the east. So I want to make sure that we properly manage the music so that there's no noise complaints. But I'm sure that this petitioner will do that because I know he wants to do well here in the village. So thank you for allowing me to make my comments.
Okay, anybody else? Any other trustees with comment? Yes, Trustee Model?
Thank you, Mayor Grasso. Yeah, I too share the noise complaint issues I've noticed in the reports. There's been a regular drumbeat of noise complaints coming out of there. So I have some concerns about that. I suspect that that I won't be able to change anything here. It's kind of rolling forward. And I was just curious, do we know who the valet is going to be? No doubt the mayor can recommend a good one.
Something, you know, you're just like your apology. It's not really you. You know, eventually the real Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde will come out. Can't you under your breath? You've still got to mutter something, just like you did with Mr. Morton.
No, that was very over my breath, Mayor.
So
Your
okay,
son has a valet business.
Trustee Schiappa, I'd like to make a comment.
You don't know what you're talking about as usual.
Yes,
Okay.
Michael
Trustee
Grasso.
Schiappa, go ahead.
It's a
Okay, thank you, Mayor. So I agree with Trustee Francis that parking is
having your friends.
a challenge there, and but I visit that County Line Square and Village Center multiple times a week. I always seem to find a parking spot, and I agree with the fact that we are in this pandemic and someone is taking a risk by opening a restaurant right now. I've got to commend them for doing that and making an investment in this village of Burridge. So I look forward to success. I wish him all the success and moving forward with us with the village of Burridge. Thank you.
This is Trustee Mittal. I'd like to make a comment. I have seen that area in the daytime when Fred Astaire was open, and sometimes there was a parking squeeze because there was a lot of daytime business with Capri and Subway and just the nail salon and all of that. But I think this would stagger the traffic nicely because the daytime businesses will have their traffic and this restaurant will have more traffic at night. So just like Trustee Schiappa said, I commend this new tenant for opening up a restaurant in these times, and I wish him success.
Anyone else?
Trustee Francis, one additional comment. When I mentioned about the noise, there were only 4 noise complaints. It wasn't regular noise complaints. It wasn't every week. It was just 4 over the course of the summer when we were forced to have outdoor dining. So I'm sure that this petitioner will manage that issue very carefully and make sure that there's no more noise complaints in the future. I have every confidence that he'll be able to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Public comment? Any public comment? Anybody call in? Anybody here in the audience? All right, roll call, please.
Trustee Snyder,
Yes.
trustee Matal,
Yes.
trustee Model,
No.
trustee Francis,
Yes.
trustee Chiappa,
Yes.
trustee Pavesa,
Yes.
5-1. 5-1, the motion passes. Why don't we address the other two items that were taken off the consent agenda before we go to the business incentive program? So that would take us to 8E, approval of plan commission recommend. What? Oh, C, thank you. Approval of HOA surveillance camera software upgrade. Trustee Francis.
Yeah, so I'd like to, the chief or deputy chief to please clarify about the use of existing HOA cameras and if that would be passive or active use. And please explain that in more detail. Because many, if not all of these HOA camera systems were sold to the residents of those HOAs that their cameras would always remain passive and only be used in the event of crime investigation. Thank you.
Yes, Chief.
Thank you. Good evening. Right off the bat, Trustee Francis, the answer to your question is yes, it remains a passive system. So what I want to do is just give you a quick overview.
Sure. Thank you.
Basically, what we have now is 16 subdivisions in the village of Burr Ridge. We have 82 cameras. And like we said earlier, it's a passive system.
And Chief, just let me give you dispensation to take your mask off, just because, people are trying to hear from calling in and.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So it's a passive system, and the data is fed into servers here at the village hall. This system, the HOA system, only records video. It does not give us any type of alerts or query capability or checks against the hot files. It needs an NCIC. Also, what we have currently is we have 2 patrol vehicles with LPR capability, which is automatic license plate recognition. And what that does is the 2 patrol vehicles each have 3 cameras on the top of the car. And when the officer drives around, it's constantly reading license plate data. And what it's doing is it's checking the license plate data against it queries automatically the leads and NCIC hot files. If there is a stolen vehicle or if the registered owner of the vehicle is wanted, it alerts the officer inside the patrol vehicle.
Right.
What we're proposing tonight is a flock safety wing program integration. And over the past years, as we enjoyed having the LPR technology on the squad cars, in the partnership with the HOAs, with the cameras that have grown to 82. Over the past couple of months, we were introduced to some new technology, which would be a tremendous asset for us here in Burr Ridge for law enforcement throughout the country. What this integration does is it takes that feed from the private cameras that we have in the subdivisions and integrates it into a database with query capability to alert us if a stolen vehicle passes past those cameras, if the individuals are wanted that are driving the car, if the registered owner data is part of the license plate, and it allows us to also know if the license plates are stolen. So it gives us real-time alerts. This is it's new technology. We were introduced to this a couple months ago. It also provides us vehicle fingerprint technology, which is trademarked by Flock, which the LPR system that we have on the squad cars does not give us the capability to do. It allows the cameras to read paper tags, the temporary tags on the cars, which some of these vehicles have on them that are stolen. It also allows us to query and program alerts in for unique characteristics of the vehicle, which, for example, would be a roof rack or certain damage on the vehicle or by color of vehicle. So it's very impressive technology that we we have access to. Next slide, please. So there's always a question of the data storage. What this technology does, the Wing program, it captures images. It does not capture video. And the images are stored in a secure cloud environment. It's the Amazon cloud base. That's what the company uses. It's fully encrypted. And it deletes in 30 days. It's a rolling deletion of a 30-day time frame. The access to the data, the Village of Burr Ridge owns the data. Flock needs our permission to have access to the data, to read the data, or to assist us in an investigation if we request. They need our permission to do so. The data is secure. They do not sell the data, and they do not share the data. So right now, our 82 cameras in the subdivisions, right now they give us LPR quality images, and that's part of the program. And that's what we set out to do right from the beginning. We wanted cameras in there. It was our recommendation to have very high quality cameras that could capture license plate images. Our data is stored locally. We have access to it. All the police officers have access to it. If a crime is committed and we need to go in and search for data in a certain time frame, we have that ability to do so. The data here in the village is deleted 30 to 180 days. It depends on what type of space is needed on the server. So it varies between subdivision. Every subdivision is different, the activity and so on. If we integrate this into the Wing program, you could see on the second column here, the additions are in red. We gain that automatic leads and NCIC hot file inquiry. It alerts police officers real time. The stolen vehicle goes into Fieldstone or any other subdivision, Borough South, that has cameras. Our officers are alerted immediately. Once again, we gain the fingerprint technology that Flock that utilizes, and full investigative search and programming capability. If there's a threat out there, we share all of our incidents with police departments in Illinois. If there's any type of threat, a suspect vehicle, that if it occurs in another town, we can go in and program, be on the lookout for this type of vehicle. So the cameras will find that. If they spot that type of description, the license plate, any other descriptors, it'll notify the officers on duty immediately. Next slide, please. So a case study, most recent vehicle burglary was in Savoy Club. You can see these images are from the Savoy Club HOA cameras. There's an image of the vehicle itself, the Volkswagen Jetta, and there's an image of the Florida license plate. We captured the video. After the fact, the officers went into the server and got those images. If we would have had these cameras integrated into the Wing interface, we would have been alerted when this car went in to that subdivision. This car and that license plate is a stolen vehicle. That license plate comes back stolen when it's run and leads an NCIC. That car was in Savoy Club for 3 minutes. Our average response time is 1 minute to 1.5 minutes. We would have gotten that alert. The officers would have went right to that subdivision. Hopefully would have apprehended these individuals. Next, please. We're trying to do what I tried to do is a cost comparison. There's a significant savings in this technology to deploy this technology. On the left side, the left column, the regular price for this technology is $89 per camera per month. That's the regular interface price. Their introductory price, they're offering it to law enforcement municipalities at $39 per camera. There's a significant savings. And that's why I'm presenting to you tonight. This is not a budgeted item, but I feel this is extremely important, and integrating these cameras in to this program would, it's not 100%, but it would be a significant tool for us to do our job. So 42 homeowners association cameras. As I said, there's 82. We've identified not every camera in the subdivision entrances and exits need to be integrated. We identified cameras in each subdivision that would be good to integrate, and we came up with 82. So the total cost for this is $20,656, and that's an annual basis. So that's broken down to $19,656 for the camera integration and $1,000 registration fee. And the company offered us a 2-year contract that reduced price. After on year 3, if we continue, the price will increase up to the $89 per camera, which is $44,856 for 42 cameras. So to give you some type of comparison, we've 3 months ago, we talked to our current LPR vendor because we've been researching fixed position cameras in the village that I wanted to propose in my 21-22 budget. So the quote we had for 9 fixed LPR cameras at different locations in the village was an initial cost of $141,750. That's for 9. If we were to do a comparison, 42 cameras, if I was to deploy 42 Reaper cameras with the current vendor we have, which the cameras on our car, it would, the estimated cost is $444,000 with an annual cost of $31,500, which comes out to about $750 on an annual basis per camera, which we're paying for the cameras on our car. So there's a significant, this is huge. It's a significant advantage to be able to use the cameras that we have active with our partnership with the HOAs. I wish I had time to approach each of the HOAs and have discussions with them, but we have until December 31st to make a decision on this. I do wish to reach out to the HOA presidents and have a discussion with them, but I wanted to present it to the board for your consideration tonight. Next slide, please. Right now, we have a Flock LPR camera. We've been trying out for the last couple of months. It's deployed on northbound County Line Road, just north of I-55. I would love to have cameras on the interchange. If I had cameras, LPR cameras on the interchange, I think we would have identified in greater detail a suspect vehicle for the incident that we had yesterday. This camera, you could see the images here. Underneath each image, it tells you the license plate, gives you a description of the car. We can also go in to the database and we could look for a description of a car. Black, white, you name it. We can a make and model, and it will show us all of those captures, those image captures on that camera. That's a self-contained camera. It's a different type of system than what I'm talking about for the integration for the HOA cameras. That is a self-contained unit that we have deployed, and we were experimenting with it. It's like I said, we will be introducing a proposal in the 2021 or 21-22 budget, which was back in 2017, I believe, the last strategic goals of a village session, the planning session. You know that it was one of my goals that I recommended was to introduce village-owned fixed point cameras throughout the village at certain ingress and egress to complement the HOA cameras. Next slide, please. So we received a lot of good questions in the past 3 days. What we did was we included them here. We received these questions from residents. So I had Deputy Chief Loftus network and contact the company to get as many answers as we can to the questions that we had presented to us. So Deputy Chief Loftus will go.
Thank you. The first question is asked about storage of video footage. And just to clarify, as the chief said before, Flock is not storing video footage, it's storing images, and it's storing them for 30 days. The cameras, as they are now, store video, and we'll still have that video stored at the servers in the village hall. They're stored on Flock servers, but we own the data. We don't harvest it. Flock doesn't harvest it. They don't have individuals looking at the captures. We don't have someone sitting down looking at the captures unless there's a reason to, or there's an alert that there's a stolen vehicle or a wanted person associated with that vehicle. Flock, we were asked about, can Flock sell the footage? Again, just to clarify, it's images, not footage. They can't sell it in the agreement. It's spelled out that if they can't sell it, they won't sell it. If they did, they would be in breach of the contract. There was a question about data mining. Can Flock data mine? And again, that is spelled out in the agreement that they can't resell the data. They can collect data that is not identifiable, to improve their system. But the only way they will go in and look at our data is if we had a problem, if an image was corrupt and they had a way to pull it up and help us with a criminal investigation. At our request, they would go in and look at it, but they're not looking at it on their own. Again, we were asked about the 30-day storage capacity. We keep, our current system keeps it for longer than that. Flock came up with a 30 days as kind of a, is that long enough for somebody that could complete a criminal investigation? Does it need to be longer? Should it be shorter? 30 days is kind of that compromise of where privacy concerns come in versus the law enforcement need to have that data. Flock won't go above that. And I can tell you from going into the system and trying it with our test camera, you can pick dates and it's a little calendar. And when I go back a month, everything is blacked out beyond 30 days and I can't even select a date beyond the 30 days. So we can't access it. They're contractually obligated to delete it after 30 days. And if they keep it longer than that, they're in violation of the contract. Similarly, I've touched on, is 30 days storage too long? It's a good length of time based on the need to try and go back and find information. We've developed information in cases a couple of weeks after the fact where you want to go back and try and find a car. This gives us enough time to look into that and do that. So we don't think it's an extended period of time. It's adjustable if need be, but we don't see a reason to go less than that. We don't, with the Flock cameras, it's not necessary to go longer than that.
Okay, any questions? Anybody have any questions?
Oh, thank you, Chief, and thank you, Deputy Chief, for answering my questions and reassuring the residents that this is a passive system. Thank you.
Trustee Skiap, I had just a couple of questions.
Sure.
Okay, so there are 82 HOAs, and we're going to fit 42, or potentially fit 42 of those HOA camera systems with this Flock system. What happens to the other 40? Their technology's not there, or what? I just wanted to get clear on that.
Well, what we did was, some of the subdivisions have multiple cameras. What we did was look at each entrance and exit. If they have two or one, we identified the cameras. We felt the need that not every camera needed to be integrated. We identified the cameras that would be most beneficial for the program, rather than having all 82 on there.
Oh, great. Okay, that works out. And then the other question I had, the costs that are getting charged for this Flock, is this something that the village bears, or is this something that the HOAs bear?
It is our recommendation that the village bear the cost.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Those are my questions.
Trustee Paveza, I like the concept of, as you know, Chief, we talked about this some time ago. But now the question I have as far as cost goes, now this is a monthly cost. I mean, so if we agree to it, we've got this cost every year then, right?
Correct. It's an annual subscription. It's based on $39 per camera per month.
Okay, will we stay with 39, or you mentioned the 89, or does it go up to 89 after the first year or something like that?
Third year.
After 2 years, the company is extending a 2-year agreement at the discounted rate. Year 3, it would raise to $89 per camera.
Just one note, in the IT fund, the village is already on an annual basis, putting away about $50,000 a year strictly for the purposes of improving the subdivision camera program. We have very rarely even approached even close to this number. While there is no particular budgeted line item for this item, as we simply we weren't aware of it last spring, there is simply enough money in the IT fund to make sure this is a sustainable program going forward, should the board choose to adopt it.
There is
sufficient money.
There is sufficient money going forward. And that was my concern too, Chief, is that 20, I'm rounding it off, you're doing for 2 years, but then there is a huge jump in year 3. And then it's that amount every year. If there's an upgrade in the camera ability, and of course, as we know, technology seems to sprint, as part of that fee, will we get an upgraded camera?
Well, the camera is, that's the HOAs purchase the cameras themselves. So what we did was we wanted to make sure that the brand of camera that we use, that this program would interface with the camera, and it does. So if there's a replacement of that camera, which we, from year 1, 10 years ago, we said the HOA comes on board, they have to have this type of camera. And that's because we need the image quality. These vehicles are moving, they could be moving at speed, and it has to be a quality image that's captured when the vehicle is moving. Did that answer your question?
Almost. I'm not quite sure. It's late. A lot of stuff going on today. So we're just buying the software, not the camera.
We are just paying for the integration.
So that's per cam. When you say per camera, that's the software per camera.
Yeah, the software is based on how many cameras you're interfacing with it.
And any upgrades in the software is going to be part of the contract.
That's part, yes.
That's another way of answering what I meant.
We are still going to capture video here. Nothing is going to change. We're not stopping recording a video feed here at the Village Hall on the servers. This is an addition. They're capturing, they're interfacing to capture images and compare those images on what we program we're looking for and the data against the hot files for LEADS, which is in Illinois, Law Enforcement Agency Data System, and NCIC, which is nationwide.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Yes.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Chief Madden. I'm appreciative of this presentation. These are the kind of things that I've been asking. Smarter solutions that can perhaps actually stop some of the crime that we're seeing and save us money. As you know, I emailed you the other night when I saw that resident talking about, on their door cam, armed robbers at their door and stuff. I didn't hear anything back from you about that recent incident, but hopefully these are the kind of things that we can talk more about. I have some concerns about privacy and civil liberties, and I recognize people's opinions on that and some of their concerns. But primarily, I have 3 questions related to this. So, first, why the deadline of 12/31? Is that to capture the special pricing that they're offering?
Yes.
Is there any way? I mean, in the interest of communicating with the homeowners associations, getting more buy-in. I mean, maybe we could wait another month. I know there's always a deal. I've made deals with equipment vendors. Always the end of the quarter is your special pricing. Maybe it's worth waiting another month or so. You can probably negotiate a good deal again, and just get some more input from the residents, buy-in from the HOA. I would recommend the board consider that, and you consider that we delay. And even if we don't get the same deal, it's not a huge increase. I think it's a valuable program. I would just recommend getting more buy-in because people have concerns about civil liberties and their privacy. The other question I had then, the second of my 3 questions, please. Do you anticipate that we will save any costs on the policing end of things? With this technology, maybe you wouldn't need 5 officers on all the time because you've got some essentially eyes on the street here helping you direct you right to the crime. So do you think we can save any money elsewhere in your budget with some of this new technology?
Are you asking with this new technology, we could eliminate full sworn officers?
I'm not sure. Again, I'm asking you, Chief, you know, you're the expert here, but are there ways that using this technology, maybe we could either cut down on the number of officers on staff or they're but on every shift, you know, we heard 5 a shift, maybe go to 4.
Let me go back. Number one, HOA doesn't have to be part of this. They can always opt out.
Okay.
We've identified for budgetary purposes the number of cameras that we recommend. Number two, I don't always have 5 officers on the street. I'd be happy to explain operations to you of how that works. I don't, okay? I have a minimum number on the streets. What this technology is what we call a force multiplier.
Right.
This technology, when we first were introduced to this, we couldn't believe it. This is a game changer. This is a tremendous asset for this community. With that many, we already have a program that's a partnership with the HOAs. We have 82 cameras deployed. That's huge to me. I think that's great. There are other municipalities that have license plate recognition cameras deployed all over at a significant 6-figure cost. Elmhurst has an impressive program. What this does, it takes the cameras that we have already out there and integrates it and gives us that capability at a significantly reduced cost.
Yeah, I'm impressed, Chief. I am impressed, and I agree with you when you say it's a force multiplier, which is why I think we could maybe consider keeping the same amount of policing with reducing something, somewhere, some hours, some time. There's got to be a smarter way with the help of this technology because it really does multiply your force. So I just encourage you to think about, again, how we can save some costs using technology, not just layer more costs on and more technology without actually saving anything. So I don't expect you to answer tonight, but please consider it as we're going forward, please. And the last thing, how do you get on the bad boys and girls list? I know you mentioned the license plate. There's like a hot list or whatever. Those are the active license plates that have been called in, to state police and stuff. How does that list happen? And then could anyone in the village just add somebody on the list? You could understand at times. I feel like the entire village board is against me. I wouldn't want to end up on the bad boys list, and you're watching where I'm going because somebody.
Oh, come on.
That's not
That's ridiculous.
That's
Come
not
on.
how it works.
Right.
When
poor victim Zach.
Mayor, please, the personal attacks. I'm just asking.
When a citizen reports their car stolen, it's entered into leads on NCIC by the police department. Okay, that's what this queries. When an individual is wanted for a crime, they're entered into leads on NCIC. Okay, after some type of proceeding, search warrant, arrest warrant, that's the type of data we don't enter in. We've had a partnership with the HOAs for approximately 10 years. It's been successful. Nobody's watching the cameras. Nobody enters in any kind of information to watch anybody unless they're suspected of a crime. And we can't even do that on the HOA cameras right now.
Because you have to call another database to enter. Like, let's say someone's suspected of a crime in Burridge. You're going to call it into something else. You have to make a report, so to speak, into a state database or something, and then it ends up loaded.
Somebody is suspected of a crime and we're looking for a vehicle like a burglar, ruse entry burglars.
Right.
We get that information. A lot of those vehicles are rentals or stolen vehicles. That is the type of data that we would enter into this program.
So you could enter it locally, or no? It has to be.
It's entered. We have to enter this locally, and when we enter it, it's in their system nationwide.
Got it.
So when this suspect, this burglary suspect, goes into your neighborhood, if you had cameras at the entrance to your subdivision, we would be alerted. And we need police officers to respond there.
And if you entered like a burglar's information and then they were in Elmhurst and Elmhurst was on the system, they'd get it, their system would be watching for that as well, correct? Or vice versa. Elmhurst could enter a bad guy and then our cameras are watching.
They're on a different system, but we're part of that system too.
And
we would do
networks
that
together.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
We don't enter people. It doesn't watch people.
Right. But a license plate, you would enter that and it would be watching the license plate.
Vehicles, yes.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else? All right, can I get a motion for approval of the HOA
Mayor.
surveillance camera
Mayor.
software upgrade?
Mayor.
Yes?
I'm sorry to interrupt. I did have a comment or two, if this is appropriate, before it's out for a motion. This is Richard Morton speaking. And there's a couple of points and one, a story that I'll illustrate the effectiveness of the systems. A few days ago, there was an event in my community where there was a individual that appeared out of place. The resident called 911, and I think that the chief's estimate of time was probably beat, that BRPD was on site, I would say, minute and a half from the 911 call. And they were very effective, and the video cameras were available for them to review the footage. So I think that overall, I support the video camera systems. I support improving them with Flock, but with caveats. And there's a couple of points that I want to make. I do not agree that the addition of Flock to existing cameras, that they remain passive. Passive to me was sold that no one was watching, the cameras did nothing but record the footage. The alternative to passive at the time was active, which was where a officer or employee would be viewing the footage. And that clearly isn't what's going to be happening with Flock, but I would suggest it's somewhere between active or passive, with artificial intelligence providing the role of the human. So just to be clear, I think the nature of the system is evolving by the installation of the Flock software. When this was sold to us, it was, as I said, passive, and the owners and the directors of the association felt it was a significant security upgrade, and we approved the contract. We paid for the installation and the cameras. For the nature of the system to change from passive to whatever we call this new system without our approval and or our ability to opt in or opt out on a camera basis, I would consider that a breach of the partnership that the chief referred to. So I would request that HOAs all have that option, and it should be part of the motion. I also noticed in the presentation that Burr Ridge's data usage policy is flexible. And I believe it was stated to be between 30 and 145 days, or I may be wrong on the high end, but it was clearly in the hundreds of days. And the civil libertarians that Flock has consulted and used, they seem to think 30 days is the right time frame. And I'm aware that the footage, the images, the whatever you want to call it, can be taken off of the Flock servers and be stored locally. And I'd like to see Burr Ridge more specifically articulate their data policies and make it consistent. Whether it's 30 days, whether it's 45 days, I don't think it should be up for interpretation. And lastly, the Flock systems added to the cameras doesn't change the deterrent effect that criminals will perceive as they're cruising the village. When a criminal cruises the village, they're going to see a video camera, they're going to scratch their head and they're going to, I don't want to go over there, I won't rob that house, or I won't vandalize that neighborhood. And so while I agree this is a game changer and gives the police an advantage, I don't think we should depreciate the value of installation of more cameras. And so I just want to raise that point that we should still be considering more cameras, especially on areas that are out of sight and out of mind, like dead end cul-de-sacs and dead ends, where one strategic camera might be able to assist in a crime. I think that pretty well covers my comments. And as I said, I think I'm a supporter with caveats. So thanks for the opportunity to tell you that.
Thank you, Mr. Morton. Is there anybody else that has a comment? Okay, now, can I get a motion for approval of the HOA surveillance camera software upgrade, the Flock Group Services Agreement?
Trustee Francis, so moved.
Trustee Snyder, second.
Any further discussion?
Yes, Mayor.
Yes.
In light of Mr. Morton's comments, I generally agreed with a lot of what he said. Is it board willing at all just to wait one more month and just get some more buy-in? I think, again, like he said, we've promised the homeowners a certain way of using these cameras. They were signed up in a certain way, and I just would, and I'm generally in favor of this. I'm inclined to vote for it, but I would especially be inclined if we could just wait one more month and give the chief a chance to reach out to the homeowners associations and get more buy-in.
I think we've done that sufficiently, but Chief, if you want to enlighten him further.
I certainly plan to do that. It was not our intention to force anybody into this program. I plan on reaching out to each of the HOAs that currently have these cameras and hopefully open up a dialogue with them.
Could we perhaps put an option in the motion, Mayor, to have an opt-out if they don't want to participate in it? Just again, they're probably going to buy in, like you're saying. I think it's a good program, but I just believe we should give them the choice, sir. And I understand.
I believe that. I agree with you. They should not be forced to be part of it. But if we have a conversation with them and they see the tremendous benefit, I think we'll have 100% buy-in, and I hope to grow it.
I agree with you, sir. So could I perhaps, if the trustees would entertain a motion to modify this and allow if it's not in there already, I'm not clear on that, an opt-out clause, if an association didn't want to allow them to opt out, would that be an appropriate modification?
I don't think it's necessary. I think the record is absolutely crystal clear that no one is going to be forced into this. So it isn't even an opt-out option. It's an opt-in option. So there's no need for an opt-out with that. We're going to get the favorable price, and then people can sign up if they want. And so it's not automatic. And so there's no need for an opt-out.
It's correct that they're opting in, but then why are we contracting for all these cameras? What if they don't all opt in? Then we're stuck on the hook paying.
Well, we need a number to give to the company.
Okay.
That's all. If the number goes down, that's not going to be an issue, as long as we have an agreement before the end of the year.
Thank you for helping me understand. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments before we have a roll call?
One final comment, please, Trustee Francis.
Yes, sir.
For future subdivisions, for other subdivisions in the future that don't have this camera system in place, this would be an excellent selling point. The police are going to know when a bad guy comes into their subdivision or into their area with a stolen car or a stolen vehicle or someone who's reputed to be a criminal, and their plates are on the alert list. And so the police, with their minute-and-a-half response time, will be able to rapidly deter any potential crime that could occur in a subdivision or some other area. So I see this as an excellent selling point for more subdivisions to come in and become part of our video surveillance system. Thank you.
Right, I agree with that. That is one of the supplemental benefits, in my opinion, for adopting this, is that once other subdivisions see what is going on in subdivisions that already have these cameras and have the ability to hopefully stop any crime, I think we will get more and more buy-in from the other subdivisions that don't have cameras and will want to be part of this. So I think, Trustee Francis, you make an excellent point. Anybody else?
Thank you.
Okay, anybody from the public call in, Evan, that wants to have a final comment on this? Anybody in the audience have a final comment on this? Roll call, please.
Trustee Francis,
Yes.
Trustee Snyder,
Yes.
Trustee Matal,
Yes.
Trustee Model,
Yes.
Trustee Chiappa,
Tony?
Trustee Chiappa,
Yes, sorry.
Trustee Paveza,
Yes.
6-0, the motion passes. All right, that takes us to item 8B that was removed from the consent agenda by in the audience. Approval of Plan Commission recommendation to approve a special use for a medical office in the T1 Transitional District, Z12 2020, 7512 County Line Road. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing this, Giadla. Please identify yourself and.
You had some of the stats of the discussion. Actually, it's very productive, but my concerns are a couple of things. Question about is the approval tonight ordinance as well. Know that we can combine special use provision for our situation.
Okay, so what we have before us tonight is merely board direction to prepare an ordinance at the next meeting. So there's no ordinance approval this evening. I want to clarify the question. Are you asking about the backup material that is being shown here? Is that what you're referring to? Yes. So the if I may misspeak here, please clarify. There was a direction from the Plan Commission that the staff of the village work with the neighboring property owners to the west to ensure that there was a orderly development of the western property line between the subject property, which you see here in a number of views, and the neighbors to the west. This included concerns about noise, light, drainage, and generally the landscaping. There has been agreement here to basically bring the property, the western half of the property, into compliance with these views here, with these renderings, with the agreement of the residents, if I believe is correct. And this is this would be, if approved, the direction of the board, that the property owner would need to bring the entire western boundary into compliance with these renderings, as you're seeing here. If there was any diversion from what I'm recommending there or talking about there, please correct me if that's the basic effect. But that was the Plan Commission's recommendation, was that the special use alone to place a chiropractic office here at this building was generally all right, but there needed to be an approved landscape plan by both staff and neighboring property owners, and this is the result of that agreement. Here.
Did that answer your question?
So what I'm concerned about is there were a few provisions
Sure.
Regarding plantings and everything. When will that appear?
Okay, I'm sorry.
It should be in the ordinance.
So I think what we would do is, if we would say that if this visually represents what you agreed upon, we would certainly be willing to put it into kind of a written agreement that is a condition of the special use at the ordinance at the January 11th meeting. But we would be very happy to do that, yes.
There were three elements. First of all, quite different. And we're not, even though a larger fence would help us, we don't want to go that.
Sure.
So we kind of agreed that despite the fence being sure right, and then just the arborvitae sufficient girth to where the local will have to provide coverage. But a couple other things that we agreed to. One, a few plantings on the west side of the fence in order to just break up the wall. And the last thing that if the property is ever sold in the future, that somehow this is transmitted to the owner, so that way they know that they have to maintain this barrier, in order to,
This runs with the land.
That's standard.
in order to stay.
That's standard.
Special use runs with the land. Yeah. So the special use, I'm sorry, Mark, first of all, we'll draft the ordinance and then we'll, if this passes, which I think it will, we'll draft it and so you can see it, so you can make sure between now and the next meeting's not going to be until January 11th.
So we'll be.
It'll be next year, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so you can look at that and that's the final vote would be January 11th. So you still got another opportunity to be heard on it. But in the interim, I'm going to ask you, Evan, to work with you so you could see it in the ordinance. And then it's my understanding, I just checked with council, that a special use, I don't know, runs with the land so that whoever gets the land going forward, not only the next buyer, but the next buyer, but the next buyer, unless they come in obviously and try to change it as time goes on, which is not unforeseeable. But in the future, it should run with the land.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Someone else? Okay. Just identify yourself, please.
Mayor, Peter again, I'm the owner, and questions that, what comments should I say? Okay, so we've been working with neighbors on possible painting or special use for a chiropractor. And you know, there is a drainage area in the back that has. And we took the position that that's some the continuity of what happened to Shirley Ryan. That's 6 months here, and with some nice vegetation on both sides, including cleaning up the soil that comes there. So we also we did a dog and building also. We're going to be working very closely when that happens. And in terms of maintenance, I was always on the impression that as part of that's an assume that if it's your property and city of the powers and nuisance or other issues. And so you know what happens with so many people will never sell a property, but if we do, that ownership will take the same position.
Sure. Thank you. Again, we'll just, Mark, you'll get to see the ordinance. We've got plenty of time. Okay. All right. Any other, can I get a motion, first of all? Can I get a motion to approve the Plan Commission recommendation to approve a special use for a medical office in the T1 Transitional District, V12 2020 7512 County Line Road, E. Adla?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Okay, any further comment by the trustees? Any comment from the audience? Is there any public comment if somebody is not here, but is virtual? Do you have any comment? Please unmute yourself and identify yourself. Roll call, please.
Mayor, could you tell me who motioned?
I think Model motioned and who second?
I did.
Mattel.
Val?
Trustee Model?
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Trustee, yes. Trustee Mattel?
Yes.
Trustee Francis?
Yes.
Trustee Chiappa?
Yes.
Trustee Pavesa?
Yes.
Trustee Snyder?
Yes.
Uh, 6-0. Motion passes. Thank you. Now we have 8F, approval of the vendor list dated December 14, 2020. I've already read it once. I'm not going to read it again. Trustee Model, you asked this to be removed.
Yeah, I was looking at some of these dollar amounts in here and I had some questions. It appears we spent a total of about, well, a total of exactly $45,631 in undocumented legal fees for the time period. And I'm curious if we can get some more clarity. That's a lot of money. And, you know, I see the other legal fees are all very well stated with a slight description of what they're about. So I have some understanding, but this is a lot of money in the last couple of months of undocumented legal fees. So that's one thing I wanted to ask about. And the other thing I wanted to ask about was the payroll. I noticed that the administration payroll, you've got $93,969.75 in there. Administration, payroll is typically 20 grand. I heard that there are 2 payrolls in here, so that would be 40 grand. But then what else is in the 93 grand? It looks like, I'm guessing, maybe that's the 38 grand for Doug's termination or whatever it is. Maybe there's 15 of Doug's vacation payout. So I'm just curious what's in there, because it's definitely a lot more than our normal payrolls are. So if you could just clarify that and clarify what these legal fees are, and why we're incurring so many undocumented.
Well, I don't know about your characterization of undocumented, but in any event, these are the types of questions, of course, you would know over the 4 years, that if you had raised the questions ahead of time, we might be able to answer them with more specificity than we might at this point. But what can we talk about, Evan?
I'm just trying to find the exact numbers, 1 second.
Particularly with one for 26 grand, just, I mean, it's right in front of you. You can roll it on the screen, Evan, if you'd like to roll to the, you know what I'm talking about, this big list with all the spending in here. The $26,259 bill that came in, looks like 1119 from our fine legal Storino, Ramillo, and Durkin. $5,638 on 1031 from Clark Baird Smith. It just says labor, general, legal services. It doesn't have a lot of description, where these other ones I see FOIA, Sterigenics, Devon Woods easement subdivision, Falling Water subdivision annex. So I get it. They bill and they kind of document what the bills are for, but.
Okay, that's enough. Okay, do we have any explanations?
I'm not 100% sure what all the legal bill item is, and I definitely don't have any clear explanation right now for the payroll.
Okay, so here's what I recommend, since we're running late and we just got these questions.
And plus, it's
I think
almost
he's
$1 million.
entitled to an answer. I think he's entitled to an answer. So let me see if I can get a motion to approve the vendor list. I'll read it out again, but what I think we should do is approve the vendor list. Trustee Model's questions are noted. Please make sure he gets or provide me with the documentation so that I can give it to him. So with specificity as to both the Clark Baird, which should be, if I know what that is, that should be about labor, and then whatever Storino bills that are in this mix. So we have some specificity that I can share with Trustee Model.
We itemize each of our time entries. SRD's bills itemize each of the time entries.
Yeah, I know.
So why does it just say general legal services?
Well,
it's not itemized.
We'll give you all the itemization and all the backup.
I mean, if we're going to approve it, it's almost $1 million. I don't know how we can approve $1 million of spending with a whole bunch of strange things in here without understanding them.
No strange things in here.
I think the public, it's not just answering my question.
How much is this for all of Trustee Model's FOIA requests costing us, Mr. Durkin?
Those are documented in here, and believe me, I'd like to do less of them. And Mayor, I would like to
come to the meetings. You could get the answers, but you don't show up
ahead of time. Yeah, Joe, I'm here all the time. You just won't let me in the meeting many
No,
times.
that is my recommendation.
So if I could talk to the staff directly and get answers, that would maybe allow me to be more.
You've been heard. You've been heard. Your questions.
You see that?
You have a motion in a second.
I'm trying to get to a motion, but trying to get anything done with Trustee Model.
I'm sorry, I'm such a monkey wrench.
Right, yeah, you are. Okay, so can I get a motion to approve the vendor list dated December 14, 2020 in the amount of $551,447.50 for all funds, plus $445,029.99 for 2 payroll periods ending November 14, 2020 and November 28, 2020 for a grand total of $996,477.49, which includes special expenditures of $36,559.02 to the Schroeder Asphalt Services for sidewalk and pathway maintenance, and $43,583.46 to RJN Group, Inc. for the MWRD program.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, there was Snyder and Natal. Okay, any public comment? Any audience comment? Roll call, please.
Trustee Snyder,
Yes.
Trustee Matal,
Yes.
Trustee Model,
Oh, with remarks. How can you approve all this
Okay,
spending
that's
without
it. You
understanding what you're voting on? How can you do this, trustees? How can you do this? It's malfeasance, nonfeasance,
Roll call.
irresponsible.
Trustee Model,
No.
trustee Franzese. Trustee Franzese. You're muted.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Trustee Chiappa,
Yes.
trustee Pavesa,
Yes,
5-1, the motion passes. Let the record reflect, also in the minutes reflect that, please, we answer his questions between now and the next meeting. Provide me with the data, please, and I'll make sure he gets all of his questions answered.
I'd love to get.
All right, so that, here's my further recommendation. We have also now have to get to item 8B, which is the continued discussion of the business incentive program. Administrator Walter suggested that we can put this over to the January 11th meeting. It's already 9:20 at night, and so it's going to be my request to get a motion to table the continued discussion of the business incentive program.
So moved. I agree with you.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any public comment? Well, it's a motion to table, so we don't go there. Just roll call, please.
who did the motion? I'm sorry, I didn't see.
Model, and the second was
Schiappa.
Chiappa.
Thank you.
Trustee Model, please.
Yes to table.
Chiappa,
Yes.
trustee Franzese,
Yes.
trustee Pavesa,
yes.
trustee Snyder,
Yes.
trustee Matal,
Yes.
6-0, the motion passes. That takes us to item 9, public comments. Are there any public comments on any item? Yes. Yes, general public comments.
Point of order, I can't hear the person speaking, so they have to speak into the microphone a little better, please.
Thank you very much. My name is Patricia Davis.
Still can't hear you.
Thank you. How's that?
Much better. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Wish everybody a good evening. Happy holidays coming up. Again, my name is Patricia Davis. I'm a resident of Pine Tree Lane. I have a master's in public health, which I think I told this body a couple of months ago. I just wanted to report to you today that in the past week, COVID-19 positivity rate in Region 8, which is us, DuPage County and Kane counties, was 13.5% on a 7-day rolling average, up from 12.9% a week before. In Cook County, the positivity had increased from 13.1% on a 7-day rolling average, up from 12.3% just a week prior. So let's remember those numbers. 13.5% for us in Region 8, 13.1% in DuPage in Cook County. So I would like to take you folks back just really briefly to a presentation made in the October 26th board meeting regarding dining tents for residents in Burr Ridge, for restaurants in Burr Ridge, I apologize. Mr. Walter participated via telephone, and he told us the following. He reported on Governor Pritzker's phase 4 mitigation efforts, which were about to go into effect, and he said verbatim, quote, "I do want to note as to what these mitigation measures actually entail. In a basic sense, they mean you cannot have indoor dining and you cannot have bar service at the bar. You may continue to have outdoor dining and continue to serve alcohol outdoors, but none of that can occur inside per the state's order." So then Trustee Franzese asked an important question, quote, "See if you can help some of the people in the audience, some of the residents, provide the distinction between indoor dining and dining inside of a tent when the tent is sealed for winter conditions," end quote. And then Mr. Walter replied, "Sure. So when a tent is fully enclosed, that is to say all of the walls are down, secured, all of the gangways and pathways into the main restaurant are closed, That's considered, quote, indoor dining. To be considered, quote, outdoor dining, at least half of the walls need to be up. That is to say, rolled up for it to be considered outdoor dining. The same is available when you have windows or garage wall, door walls, or indoor area of a restaurant. If you can open those, that's considered outdoor dining as well. So again, the distinction is half the walls on the tent make it that are up, make it, quote, outdoor dining. That's the quote from Mr. Walter. Then Trustee Francis responded, okay, so you would expect then to have a tent in operation in January with half the walls up and people dining inside? And Mr. Walter replied, I would expect all the walls to be down and the heater running, and that to be called indoor dining. Then Trustee Francis countered, okay, but with these shutdown orders, these tents can't be used in the wintertime, he asked. That's where I'm going to, he said. To which Mr. Walter replied, more or less, yeah. So I asked you to remember those numbers reported in the past week. 13.5% for the 7-day rolling positivity rate for us in Region 8 and 13.1% in Cook County. But that was in October 26th. When Mr. Walter was addressing this board, the rate was about 8% in DuPage and Kane counties and about 6% in Cook County. Much, much less than what's going on today regarding the positivity rate. So none of these tents used by the restaurants in Burr Ridge open their windows or roll their walls open, and yet they call themselves outdoor dining. Capri Restaurant's tent doesn't even have windows. I don't know about the other restaurants, but I know Capri doesn't. I have distributed a photo that was taken and was printed in a couple of media outlets that shows supposed outdoor dining area at Capri, taken 2 Fridays ago, I believe. And as you can see from the picture that I distributed, it is completely enclosed. That's the tent outdoors. Outdoor dining? I don't think so. Mayor, with the positivity rates and case rates climbing, how can you justify keeping these restaurants open for, quote, in outdoor dining, or even indoor dining in defiance of Governor Pritzker's mitigation orders, with the positivity rates soaring here all over the country? These tents, as Trustee Francis noted, are really indoor dining facilities. So Mayor, respectfully, I'd like to hear your justifications. And why isn't the Burr Ridge Police Department enforcing the governor's health promoting orders, such as capping indoor dining at 25% capacity and closing down restaurants and bars at 11 p.m. among other mitigation efforts? Why, Mayor Grassley? Why?
Thank you. Any other public comment?
I just want to make one more comment. Earlier this evening, Mayor, you said, quote, public safety is the #1 job of government, end quote. That was your quote tonight. Please provide some public safety for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, that takes us to reports and communications from village officials. For any reports and communications from any village official?
Yes, ma'am.
This is Trustee Maytel. I just wanted to let you know that Jingle Mingle, which is a very successful program done by the village and village center, this year, because of the new advisory, we are going to postpone it to 2021. So there will be no Jingle Mingle this year.
Thank you. Any other trustees?
Yes.
Yes, Trustee Model.
Thank you. Please bear with me. I have a few things to say because I haven't been able to say them at other times. But first, regarding resident Ms. Davis's comments, you know, I feel for the plight of businesses and stuff, but when I see stuff like this in here, they're not even trying. They're not even trying. These people are packed in behind to behind, butt to butt, so to speak. Not even trying. 25% capacity, not even trying, you know, and so I could understand a business couple of tables here, you know, trying to be good, living on carry out. I could understand that, but that's not what's happening here. It's just gross disregard for the law. And unfortunately from this restaurant, that's what we see all the time, gross disregard for the law. I do hope that when his sales tax receipts come in, that they are higher, because no doubt the man appears to be doing, at least this restaurant appears to be doing a greater business than it ever did before the pandemic. They've essentially doubled their capacity. So we'll watch those tax receipts, and hopefully at least the village gets that, because they're definitely having a spread here, and I don't think that this is right. My other comments, I had asked to put on the agenda tonight a couple of things. One of them being a discussion about the release of the closed session minutes that I recently reviewed, September 14th and September 28th meetings. And I'm not going to divulge what was said, but I do want to say I was really troubled by what I heard, and I think the public ought to hear these recordings and review the minutes as well. Therefore, I'm asking the full board in public here to release these recordings and the minutes from these meetings. I asked Mayor Grasso again to put this on tonight's agenda, and he refused. So I'm asking that this be placed on the next available agenda for a vote. The Open Meetings Act states that exclusions, quote, do authorize but do not require the holding of a closed meeting to discuss a subject included within an enumerated exemption, unquote, and requires us to, quote, periodically but no less than semi-annually meet to review minutes of all closed meetings. At such meetings, the determination shall be made and reported in an open session that, one, the need for confidentiality still exists as to part or all of those minutes, or two, that the minutes or portions thereof no longer require confidential treatment and are available for public inspection, end quote. So again, I'm asking that this be on the next meeting's agenda for discussion, because I think that what I heard is extremely troubling. I'm concerned there may even be illegal activity going on here, and I think the public needs a chance to weigh in and have some transparency. And we're talking about this amount of money for the village and this amount of liability. The other items that I attempted to put on the agenda tonight were a discussion of apparent violations of the Liquor Control Act by licensees in the village. I don't want to get shouted off, so I won't go into more details, but I sure would like to put these on the agenda because I'm aware of violations, including that liquor license holders here in the village are distributing alcohol without an appropriate wholesale relationship, or maybe that's been resolved, but for at least several months this year, at least one licensee was probably buying his alcohol at retail and then distributing it here. And there's a reason he lost his relationship with his liquor distributor. So I think we should, the liquor commissioner should hear about that. We should talk about that. The other one would be the discussion and consideration of where Michael Grasso's valet business at Capri and maybe at this new place creates any conflict of interest for Mayor Grasso, and what should be done about that. I've been trying to talk about this for a while, and I think we need to have a discussion. So I'd like to see that end up on an agenda. And then, discussion of what is apparently another payout related to Doug Pollock and the reasons for that payment. I won't get into it, but I think that that's something that the public needs to understand and know, that there's more money than has been really disclosed to them related to what's going on there. I'd also like to talk about the status of Jerry Sapp and his return to work plans. I think he's been a longtime employee of the village. Some of his stuff was published in the past, so we don't have a confidentiality issue there. And he sent an email to the trustees today explaining that that he's in pretty good status. So I really think we need to get him back on a return to work plan. I think he's been very great for the village. I think we had a wonderful presentation today, and no doubt, but I think that, Jerry deserves the opportunity to come here in a dignified way and get back to work the way he wants to. We're spending a lot of money keeping him out of work, and I question if that's what all those legal fees are about, 50 grand of legal fees. Oh my God. So I
the FOIAs.
And then we talked about the undocumented legal fees, and then just in general conflicts of interest. Again, I know Trustee Snyder's not a big fan of my comments on this, but he has a relationship with this law firm. I see you shaking your head. You recommended this law firm. Your best friend Richie Pellegrino is of counsel and stuff. And when they're billing us these kind of monies without any definition or explanation, I question a lot of the conflict of interest that we have here with the contracts and the spending in the village. And we're hiring people without transparency, when we're specifically inviting them to participate and not calling for an open call. These are the kind of things we can do better. Open transparency on bidding, open transparency on hiring, and the no bid contracts, and the insider contracts.
Yes.
So I'll be done when I'm done, Mayor.
You are repeating yourself, and it is late, and you're being disrespectful, I think, of everybody else.
Oh,
but
man,
go ahead.
I've been here a long time. Let me just have my time.
Yeah, well, you don't
listen. I
attend
don't want to
our
argue
board
with you,
meetings
sir.
regularly,
So
okay?
I'd like to attend them more.
Yeah, well,
if
you,
you'd let me
that's up to
participate
you.
by calling
So
in,
would
if
you
you'd let- if you'd
please
not
sum up?
block me.
Would you please sum up?
Yes, so thank you for reminding me of one more issue. Yes, the trustees like to say I don't participate, but in the last several meetings that they claimed I didn't participate in, I was attempting to participate. None of you would make a motion to allow me to join by phone. I did the same. I extended the courtesy that you didn't give me, Joe. I made the motion so you could participate remotely
Okay,
last time. So
thank
thank
you,
you,
Zach.
Mayor Grasso, for
Thank
allowing
you.
me to speak.
Thank
I
you.
really appreciate everybody's time.
Right, thank you. Anybody else have any?
Grasso, Joe Snyder.
Yes, go ahead.
Look, we hear Trustee Model get on his stand up there and tell us how great and how we're holding him hostage and he can't participate. You asked him, I asked him, our great counsel asked him, will you supply the documentation for your phone? And what did he say? No. So here's a gentleman who wants to do transparency. He gives session information out, yet he can stand up on his pedestal and complain that.
Don't interrupt, let him speak.
He just goes on and on. All we do is every time he does come, he's on his pedestal. Poor Trustee Model. Poor Trustee Model. I'm done. Thank you.
Joe.
Thank you. Anybody else, reports or communication?
Hello?
Yes,
Can the
Alfred,
public-
that's in here. I just wanted to make a comment. I quite didn't pick all of it up, but I know Trustee Model brought up about releasing closed session meetings. The Burr Ridge has a method by which every so often closed session meetings are brought up and the board votes on it to see if it can be released. And we do release certain closed session minutes, but there are some of these minutes that we don't release because they are private. And it's a normal method that we have for voting to release them. So nobody's hiding them. If the board feels they should be released, we'll vote on it to release it. If not, we won't. I know there's some dating way back to when we brought the water main in. There was some touchy minutes. Those still haven't been released.
Oh, good to know.
Anybody?
This is Trustee Mittal. I just want to add that Trustee Model, when you say we need to release closed session meetings, you were in one of those meetings and you just leaked out all that went on and was discussed in those meetings to the media, which I think is a violation of your oath.
I wasn't
Okay.
in those meetings, man.
All right, anybody else?
You've misstated.
Can I,
Yeah, Anita, Trustee Model's correct. That's one of the many meetings he's missed. And then he listened to the minutes after giving everybody grief about when and where and how. And then when he finally listened to them, yes, you're right. Personal matters he disclosed to the public and to the media. And unfortunately, the media even published it, even though it was personal. But that's their choice too.
I'm just
Anybody
trying to protect
else?
the village's interests, sir. I'm just trying to protect.
when the trustees are done speaking, I'd like to make another comment addressing something that was just said.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, it's Ellen Raymond. I think Trustee Snyder brought up that you're having,
Ellen,
yes,
Ellen, wait for the next meeting. We already had public comment. This is reports and communications from village officials.
okay.
Are there any other village officials that have that have reports or communications?
This is Trustee Francis. I'd like to make
Yeah.
a couple comments. Number one, that vendors list that we see, that's a summary of each and every piece of paper and invoice and document that we receive from all of our suppliers and vendors. It's rolled up into a line item for each particular invoice. And then that's summarized on that 3-page sheet with all the dollar numbers. It's purposely, there's no detail there. Trustee Amato, you should understand that. If you wanted to see a detailed invoice, I'm sure staff would be happy to provide it to you, but please ask ahead of time.
No, we haven't, and it will be provided. Go ahead,
sir.
Stop interrupting.
And second, nobody prevented you from attending the meeting last month in November. You just didn't show up. And nobody prevented you from attending the 2 meetings in September that you missed. You just didn't show up. So in a course of 3 months, 6 meetings, you missed 3 of them. That's 50% attendance rate. Thank you.
correct. I was on the phone. And you
Okay, any
disconnected
other
me.
reports and communications from village officials?
Yes, for the record, I was on the phone and you disconnected me from those meetings. You muted me.
And
you
for
used
the
your
record, according,
technological game
and
here
for the
to prevent
record,
me from
you've been
participating.
told to come to visit.
I know what I've been told by you, Mayor. You say a lot
To
of things.
Zoom meetings like everybody else, but you won't show up Zoom because we don't even think you are here in the village. And as the resolution noted, you've missed 10 meetings since November of 2018. So in any event, does anybody else have any other?
Is Joe drinking?
Water.
Other thing that you muttered under your breath?
Oh, that was a legitimate
Yeah,
question. I don't think
okay.
you should drink during
None of your business.
Okay.
Water.
All right, so I have some closing comments and then we can adjourn. I did want to give recognition to our finance department and to our overall administration. It came to my attention that they put in for the Government Finance Officers Association Distinguished Budget Presentation Award, and they won it. And so I want to congratulate, and that would include Jerry Sapp, Amy Nelson, Amy Sullivan, our administration that participated in this great award. What is recognized as part of this award, as I'm trying to get through my notes here, is that it presents itself, the budget that is to say, presents itself as a policy document that the village can rely upon. It is a financial plan the village can rely upon. It operates as an operational guide for the village to rely upon, and it is a communications device. And for these four factors, this budget met all of those. And as a result, Burr Ridge won this Distinguished Budget Presentation Award. So kudos, Amy, and to everybody that was involved. Very proud of you and the village for doing that. We also want to welcome our newly appointed acting village clerk, Susan Schaus, to her first village board meeting. If nobody noticed, it was her, not only was it her first meeting, she had to do it virtually at another location. So she really jumped into the deep water. So we thank Sue for her willingness to step up and complete the term of retired village clerk Karen Thomas. In order to promote the health and safety of our residents and staff, the village hall offices are closed to the public until at least January 4th. And can I also note that the trustee model who wanted to be heard now that I'm speaking has gotten up and left the board meeting. Staff is working remotely and is still available by phone and email to conduct all village business. Deliveries and permit documents can be left in the vestibule of the village hall. Utility bill and permit payments can be placed in the drop box on the front of the building. Accommodations have been made for candidates to drop their election petitions for the April election. The village hall will be closed for all business on December 24th and 25th for the Christmas holiday, and also the afternoon of December 31st and January 1st for the New Year holiday. And finally, I want you to note we've gotten many of the many comments from village residents, those that do business here, about the lights around the village, the bridge that's been enhanced this year. And I know the board and I are very proud of the way Burr Ridge has stepped up in what has been a very, very, very difficult year. And finally, to close, I do want to wish everybody the happiest of holidays in the most extraordinary circumstances. A Merry Christmas, a Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, and just get together with family to the extent that you can. When you can't, try to Zoom, try to anchor. This has mentally been as challenging as it's been physically. There's been too much sickness and too much death around the counties that we serve, the state that we live in, the country we live in, and all around the world. So please try to enjoy the holidays, try to look forward to a 2021 with more promise and COVID-free. Vaccines are on the way. They're starting to be given out already as we speak tonight. And in the first few months of 2021, we expect hundreds of millions of people, hopefully, to get vaccinated and move forward with this terrible pandemic. So on behalf of the Village of Burr Ridge, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and Happy Kwanzaa, and enjoy 2021. Can I get a motion to go into closed session? Let me read.
Adjourn into closed session.
Motion to adjourn and to go into closed session, let me read it. To discuss the appointment, employment, compensation, or performance of specific employees of the public body under 5 ILCS 120-2C1.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Chiappa,
Yes.
trustee Matal,
Yes.
trustee Model,
Yes.
trustee Francis,
Yes.
trustee Pavesa,
Yes.
trustee Snyder.
Yes.
6-0, the motion passes. We are adjourned and going into closed session.